This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. This is your Crown Jewel prediction go-home show, and we've got a ton to cover, like trouble in AEW, as well as some new AEW signings, and we've got some additions to the WWE Injured Reserve list. We're going to get into all of that later. Introducing right now, he's the one, he's the only. He is the leader of Calling the Card. He is a mind for the wrestling game. This guy should have a pencil in a company writing and telling stories. He is the one, he is the only. He is the Doc John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Oh, hell yeah. You know what I'd write? Natalia in a cat suit every week.
Yeah.
I would be like, you know what? I think Doc needs to kind of have a valet, and it's got to be Natalia, and she's got to dress like that. Something fun about Halloween is to see the craziness that does ensue on WWE, and boy, was it crazy. The build-up, I thought Raw was really interesting. AEW was wild this week, but I'm really excited for Crown Jewel. I think it's going to be something that everybody that gets a chance to tune in on Saturday is going to have a good time to enjoy.
So just being men and being a little piggish here, Natalia gets it done. Like, I feel like her character in WWE, not great. But Natalia on Instagram or on Twitter, she's a fantastic follow. Whatever you think about her, she's got a pretty great body. So just gonna put that out there. But I think you're right. I think Crown Jewel is going to be a really good show. There's going to be a lot of important people at this show. You're going to have execs from the TKO merger. You're going to have Vince McMahon in the house. You're going to have a ton of like celebrities. Sounds like Cristiano Ronaldo will be part of this show. So look for some big names. Look for a lot of important faces in the world of wrestling and in the world of business to be at this show. Now, this show kicks off on Saturday at 1 o'clock. This is our prediction show. So remember, card is scheduled to change, but this is the card that we have at the time of recording this. So we're trying to get this done so we can get this out to everybody before Saturday's show. And let's just kick this off with something that got established on Monday night. We're going to get Sami Zayn versus JD McDonough in a pre-show match. This will be the first pay-per-view that we've had with WWE that is giving us a pre-show in a very long time. They've done away with some of these pre-show matches. A lot of times it is just the commentators on the sideline kind of talking about the stories going into the matches, and we don't really get that undercard. This pay-per-view, we're getting an undercard. It's going to be Sami Zayn. It's going to be JD McDonough. This was established as we continue to kind of see where JD McDonough fits in with the Judgment Day. He's like the one guy who's part of the team, but not really part of the team. He's always offering up his service and doing some dirty work. And Sami Zayn, now having no problem going to Saudi Arabia, I believe this will be his second, maybe his third show doing these Crown Jewel events. We'll be taking on JD McDonough in the pre-show. First off, what are your thoughts about the pre-shows being brought back, and what are your thoughts about this specific match?
Yeah, I think that pre-shows are great. I'm seeing that, the appetite is large. You can't have shows go till midnight, you know what I mean? And you just have the opportunity to get people involved. I know everyone loves the talking situation and everything like that. I'm really curious about JD McDonough, man. I like what he does, but it's just weird. It's like it has the feel of him not really belonging on the main roster. I think he should have stayed at NXT and been a bigger star. So I'm curious to see how it plays out with him. What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, look, I kind of agree with you. He feels kind of like a square peg in a round hole right now. I think there is some long-term booking here, and I think there is a vision. I think there is something in store for what they're going to do with him and how he's going to be a part of the Judgment Day. And look, the way I put this card together, and we'll get into this with the next match that we're going to talk about after we give our predictions here, I think you're going to start to see some movement in the Judgment Day storyline. I think at some point JD McDonough gets added to the Judgment Day. I think at some point, JD McDonough becomes a part of this and will no longer have this square peg, round hole situation going on. But with that being said, I don't believe that Judgment Day will remain a 5-member unit for very, very long. And I'll give you a little bit of insight when we get to our next pick. But I think the way this goes, and I think the reason for this is to help elevate McDonough and to help get McDonough into the Judgment Day. I think JD McDonough ends up winning this match over Sami Zayn. I think there will be some outside interference from the Judgment Day that will play a part in it. But I see McDonough winning it and helping to establish himself moving forward in the Judgment Day. How do you see it playing out?
Man, it's been tough, right? Tell me what you think first, because I have a lot of ideas, fantasy booking and things like that. What do you think?
I think JD McDonough wins this. That's how I see this playing out. I see McDonough winning it, and then I think what'll end up happening is you'll probably have Dominic Mysterio, or you'll have Damian Priest or Rhea Ripley or somebody do something on the outside that distracts Sami Zayn long enough for McDonough to hit his finish. The ref doesn't see it. Somebody else will be up on the apron, and what'll happen is you get the 1, 2, 3, and it's kind of McDonough's incorporation into the Judgment Day. All of a sudden, he becomes a part of it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if Finn Balor was there, and Finn Balor was the guy who was grabbing Sami Zayn's boot while you had Rhea Ripley or Dominic Mysterio up on an apron distracting a referee.
See, here's the thing. If you have JD McDonough win this, that really is not the best for Sami Zayn. I understand it was real interesting, his promo that he cut. People have kind of read more into it. Not going to go too much into it here, but it was interesting. The passion that Sami Zayn had, it just kind of sends you off a little bit. It makes you a little bit confused. Like, man, how his next mission is to take down the Judgment Day. Well, you can't start if you can't beat JD McDonough. I mean, it's just too. It's not. I think it'll be a situation in which Sami wins it, but Judgment Day runs in, just similar to what happened on Raw, and Judgment Day just tries to do something after the fact to establish their dominance. I can't see if Sami Zayn loses, his downfall, I think you devalue him as a character. I do think that his pops are huge. He's one of the biggest stars in the company. I just think that I can't. I know that McDonough needs the push and needs to kind of start establishing himself, but I don't see it. I see Sami Zayn winning it.
See, I think Sami Zayn's at a point right now where he could take the loss. It's not going to ruin him. I think it could add more fuel to the fire. This could be something that really gets this thing cooking for him, where you talk about him wanting to take down the Judgment Day. He wants to go all out against them. This could be something else that just kind of adds to it. It's just another log on a burning inferno. So, like I said, I see JD McDonough winning this. And as we kind of work our way through this card, I think this card is going to tell you a lot of kind of about my mindset with what happens. Because our next match, we've got Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest. Now, Cody Rhodes cut a very impassioned promo on Monday Night Raw. And he basically called out Damian Priest. And I thought it was a fantastic promo that Rhodes cut on Priest. And look, I think you could make an argument for both Rhodes or Priest winning this match, which is why I think it is so interesting. But I think what's more interesting will be the placement on the actual card, because I believe this match will go on. This will be the curtain jerk. This will be the one that opens everything up, because I think it plays a part in what's going to happen later on in the evening. So I think Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest. I think Cody Rhodes wins this. I think this match goes first. And if this match goes first, it tells me everything that I need to know for the back half of the show. So I got Cody Rhodes winning this match and Damian Priest being very upset. Somehow Cody Rhodes is able to overcome the obstacle that is the Judgment Day. It's going to be a very Judgment Day heavy pay-per-view. How do you see this one playing out? Cody Rhodes win it, or does Damian Priest walk away with the victory?
No, I see Cody Rhodes winning it. I think that a pin of Cody Rhodes on a major event is something that you shouldn't do on his rise to becoming the world champion. So I do think that the story is the descent, and Damian, they laid it out on Raw where he's like, what do you mean? The promo that Cody cut talking last week about the Judgment Day being leaderless, I think rubs Damian Priest the wrong way. He so desperately wants to be the leader. He doesn't want to be viewed as second or third fiddle to Finn Balor or even Rhea Ripley, who I thought is great to open a show with. Mm-hmm. I really was impressed with her ability to open Monday Night Raw and the presence that she has. She should be the leader, in my opinion, moving forward. So I think that Cody takes it, and it's going to be a great match. And the crowd deserves a pop. If they're going to open with that, you're not going to want to start off with Damian Priest winning.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fantastic match as well. And look, I think you're right. Credit to Rhea Ripley and credit to everybody who has a role in the Judgment Day, right? Judgment Day is a very interesting faction, and it does feel as though Rhea Ripley is the de facto leader in that group, and she does a fantastic job. But we'll get into her story a little bit later on as we make our way through the card. Next on the docket, we've got Rey Mysterio taking on Logan Paul. This will be for the WWE United States Championship. How do you think this plays out? I think this is going to be a high-flying match. I think there's going to be a ton of high spots. These two have chemistry. These two have wrestled before. I think this should be a very interesting match. Does Logan Paul come away with WWE gold?
Oh, man. No, I don't think so. It would be crazy to have that happen overseas. Logan Paul's great, good athlete. I think that it's great that he pops in every now and then, but I think that you got to have Rey Mysterio retain.
See, there's another match where I could see Dominic Mysterio playing a part. I'm going to say Logan Paul wins this, and I think it'll be some type of actions on the outside where maybe Dominic Mysterio plays a role. It'll be interesting to, you know what? You could also have anybody from Bobby Lashley's faction possibly play a role in this match as well. So I'm going to go Logan Paul. So far, me and you are very different. The only thing we're agreeing on is Cody Rhodes right now. But I think Logan Paul comes away with the WWE United States Championship. I think he spends some time as the WWE United States Champion. We then have Io Sky defending against Bianca Belair for the WWE Women's Championship match. Bianca Belair made a return, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago now, when she came back on SmackDown and basically is now challenging Io Sky for that championship belt. How do you see this playing out? Do they put the belt back on Bianca, or do they leave it on Io and continue to tell this story?
Nope, they leave it on Io. I think it's going to be a great match, wonderful opportunity for the crowd to really get into a women's match. I think it'll be an opportunity to steal the show, but I think you got to tell the story more of Io. I think she's a great champion, and I think that there's more to be made in Bianca chasing and having her get screwed in some way, and or maybe even branching off into a different feud. So I'm definitely all aboard Io winning it.
Yeah, look, I have kind of gone back and forth about this because I could see them putting it on Bianca, but that being said, it makes sense to leave it on Io. And I think there's a good story that is going on surrounding Damage Control and Damage Control holding that women's championship match. And like you said, the money is usually in the chase. Bianca chasing or Bianca getting into another feud with somebody else could be more interesting. Also, not having the championship allows Bianca to go in a multitude of directions. And there have been teases and there has been talk about Bianca possibly turning heel. This could be the thing that kind of puts her over the edge, and maybe she gets a little bit of an edge to her, and maybe we change up her character a little bit. So I think Io wins this as well. Next, we've got John Cena versus Solo Sikoa. John Cena has talked a ton about whether he may be at the end of his road as a wrestler, hasn't won a lot of matches, going into this one looking for a W. Solo Sikoa has been built up beautifully to be this enforcer of the bloodline, has been a guy who looks lethal, looks like he can take you out, has basically a thumb of doom and will punch a hole in your neck. How do you see this playing out? Does John Cena get the win, or does Solo Sikoa keep him in the loser's bracket and thumb punches his way to a W?
I see John Cena getting the big pop, man. I thought the line, maybe that's waited for me, was when he said, maybe I don't have it. And I think that his test against Solo needs to be an opportunity for him to prove that he still got something. The crowd deserves another great opportunity. Solo's the man. He's going to be around for a long time, but he's got to handle the business. He's got to go down to John Cena. You can't have John Cena lose every single match that he comes back in, and I think that this is a great opportunity overseas to kind of establish John Cena as somebody that is important. That's going to be a thorn in the side of the bloodline.
See, I agree with you 100%. I think at some point you have to give John Cena a bone. You've got to make him credible. It's the only way he's able to help come back and put other guys over. Because when you and I are watching this and we know it's a John Cena match, we're like, John Cena's going to lose. This is a way you kind of flip that script. And I think that you make the bloodline more interesting when you give them a little bit of adversity. When Solo takes an L, when Jimmy takes an L, Maybe Roman takes an L. By doing these things, it makes them more interesting. Them having this unrivaled historic run where they're just running roughshod over everybody, it's not interesting. There's nothing there for you to really sink your teeth into. Having guys lose and having guys take L's here or there makes things interesting. So because of that, I think it makes John Cena more interesting to get a win over Solo. I think it makes Solo more interesting if he takes a loss, because now it creates a little bit of friction in the bloodline that you can kind of build off of. You can now have Roman Reigns and Solo kind of have their own little thing going back and forth. That was really, really interesting a few months ago when you had Roman and Solo kind of staring at each other side-eye and kind of looking at each other a little awkward. I think you can build on that if you have a loss here for Solo Sikoa. So I'm going to go John Cena as well. Now, Rhea Ripley, the leader of the Judgment Day, that's what we're going to call her. That's what we're going to refer to her as. She is taking on Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez, Shayna Baszler, Zoe Starks. This is for the Women's World Championship. It's a fatal five-way match. I'm going to keep it real simple. I don't believe in Nia Jax. I think Nia Jax could be more of a liability. She's been known to hurt wrestlers. I don't believe in Raquel Rodriguez. I feel like her push has been weird. Shayna Baszler, look, if it was an MMA fight, I'm down. I think Zoe Starks has a bright future, and I think she could be great at some point, just not right now. I think Rhea Ripley keeps the belt. I think you're going to see Rhea Ripley keeping the belt on her for a while until we get to maybe Elimination Chamber. And even at Elimination Chamber, she'll probably still win it there. So I think Rhea Ripley stays your champion.
No doubt. I think you got to the purpose of this is to establish Raquel Rodriguez and Nia Jax and to have some maybe more feuds stemming from the other two ladies being in there as well. So it's going to be great. I think that I love the angle that they've started to set up with Raquel and, just being upset and the way in which they've set it up all the way through. And I just think this also has an opportunity. This is a good opportunity for the women on this card to showcase what they're about. And I'm looking forward to this one. But I just want to see how Rhea attacks the approach of having all these women she's got to deal with.
I feel like they, at a certain point, have kind of missed the boat a little bit on Rhea. Like, she's great, right? And she's awesome playing that pseudo China role. Like, China in DX would kind of mess around with the guys. She'd be involved in the men's storyline. And Rhea is a bad enough bitch to where she can mess around in the guys' storylines. She can hold her own against a lot of the dudes in the ring. Like, she has the look. She can cut promos on the mic. She does a really, really good job. She's incredibly strong as well. I think they've done a really good job there of building her up. What I think they've dropped the ball on is really building a credible challenger that she has to try to overcome. If you look at her storylines, they've been a little bit of a miss. Like, nobody's really been built up to where you're like, oh yeah, this could really happen. Like, whether they're force feeding her Natalya or whether it's something with Zoe Starks or even Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax to me doesn't strike any fear. I thought it was interesting when Nia Jax did come back and Rhea Ripley and her had a little bit of a back and forth, but at no point do I buy Nia Jax as a credible challenge for Rhea Ripley. So I think coming out of this, I think the big thing is, can you find one of these four other women to become a credible challenger for Rhea Ripley down the road? Because right now, I don't buy any of these. I just don't. And I think Rhea Ripley is heads and tails above all of them. And I think you're in lockstep with me where she does fantastic work. But as far as the women's division goes, it doesn't really feel like anybody is elevated to her level where they seem like worthy to challenge her for that belt. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Whew. Man, I know that Rhea Ripley can do more and can be more of a badass, and she does need more of an opportunity to have more challengers, but I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think them trying to figure out the women's roster will continue to kind of be that work in progress. And hopefully we get something nailed down by the time we get to the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. We'll see what takes place there. All right, moving on. We've got Roman Reigns taking on LA Knight. Now, look, I don't know if this is going to be the co-main event. I don't know if this is going to be the actual main event. The way I have this placed on our card, I've got this as the co-main event. I've got this one leading up to what's going to take place as the main event. You could have it the other way around. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they roll out as far as how the matches are kind of organized. But I've got this in this order, and I will explain a lot to you at the very, very end of our predictions. But Roman Reigns taking on LA Knight for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. We said it a couple weeks ago. As great as LA Knight is, we do not buy him beating Roman Reigns. I do think that there will be some type of outside interference, whether it's from Jimmy, whether it's from Solo, whether it's from Paul Heyman. Maybe there's a new addition to the bloodline. We will see. I just don't think LA Knight gets the job done, which is unfortunate because he has had an awesome rise and he has been so much fun. And he is one of the guys that you tune into and you stop everything to watch because he is fantastic. And him versus Roman Reigns should be a really, really good match. All that being said, I'm taking Roman Reigns. I've already got you penciled in for Roman Reigns. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. No chance LA Knight wins it. It would shock the wrestling world. It would send reverberations around everything if he did it, so I would be shocked. So it's Roman Reigns. Let's just see who shows up, what's the angle, how this plays out. It's going to set up the future in terms of everybody loving LA Knight for getting screwed.
For sure. And that leads us to our main event, which I've got down as Seth Rollins defending against Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, the reason I have the card set up this way, and this was me doing some of my own creative booking, I think we're going to see a belt change, but it's not going to be what you're thinking. I think Seth Rollins beats Drew McIntyre in this match. I think it's a good match. I think it's a bloodbath. I think this is one of those matches that they'll probably give it 35, maybe 40 minutes. And Seth Rollins comes out the winner. But we do have a belt change here. I think this is where you get Damian Priest cashing in. And this goes back to a little bit of the psychology from earlier. This is why Damian Priest's match is the curtain jerk. This is why it's opening. I think you have a thread that runs through this entire pay-per-view. I think at some point Damian Priest pops up, surprises Seth Rollins, and we take the belt off of Seth Rollins, and it's done here. And this is what we go home on. We go home on Damian Priest, new World Heavyweight Champion, and I think it's going to be a fantastic, glorious finish. Look, if you're a Seth Rollins fan, yeah, it's going to suck a little bit, but how cool would it be to see Damian Priest cash in that briefcase and become the new World Heavyweight Champion? So I think Seth Rollins wins, but I'm calling it right now. I think Damian Priest cashes in and walks out the World Heavyweight Champion.
Man, that would be crazy. That would be stunning if they set forth the path ahead of Survivor Series now. I don't see it. I see that the Damian Priest situation is going to be more focused on the Judgment Day and obviously Sami Zayn and things like that. But that would be wild. I don't see a cash in yet. I think you do it on a bigger stage in the United States, maybe at Survivor Series. I think that this is just an opportunity to highlight. Maybe you threaten it. Maybe you start that situation where he comes out at the end but doesn't cash it in and starts that beginning where he does now say, I'm open to fight Seth Rollins. So I don't see it. I see Seth winning it. I think Drew's going to have a great opportunity. People are going to be loving it and be all into it, but I see no chance that major titles. Again, usually this is a glorified house show, and surprises may end up. If I'm wrong, I think my wrong prediction will be Bianca winning it. Other than that, I don't see major title changes happening on this card.
Would you be willing, because you have a 4-point lead on me, you lead 10.5 to 6.5 on calling the card. Would you be willing to give me 1 bonus point if Damian Priest cashes in and wins the World Heavyweight Championship at the very end of this pay-per-view?
Yeah, absolutely. If that happens, that's a major, major shift with things going on with Seth Rollins, with things going on, and you're willing to call it now. Unless, like I said, I haven't been looking at dirt sheets. I definitely have not been looking at stuff like that. If you, know
I have
that,
no idea.
Okay.
I have not. The only thing I've done this week is I've watched a little bit of the WWE programming, and this is just something as I was putting the card together and
That's
I looked
bold.
at the matches, I was like, this would make sense to me to do it this way.
Then I have to say, would you be willing to give me the bonus point if he doesn't?
No, because it makes more like I'm going out on a limb here. There's no limb for you to go out on.
Okay.
I'm going out on a limb here. I am telling you that this is going to happen. So no, I'm not going to give you a bonus point for that because there's more of a likelihood that he doesn't actually cash it in. So I don't actually get the bonus point.
Okay. No, either way, it doesn't. I understand. Because in the end, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to end up winning. I'm going to end up winning the event anyway. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. It's going to make it interesting for sure.
Really
at the end.
And truly, this comes down to we've got two matches here that could really sway this, and that is Sami Zayn, JD McDonough. You've got Sami Zayn, I've got JD McDonough, again, leading into this story that I believe is going to be told throughout this pay-per-view with the Judgment Day. And then I've got Logan Paul winning the United States Championship over Rey Mysterio. And look, I think safe money is Rey Mysterio retains his belt, but I'm going creative crazy here, so I'm going to throw it at Logan Paul. But other than that, me and you are pretty much in lockstep, whether it's Cody Rhodes, Damian Priest. We both have Cody Rhodes. We both have Io Sky beating Bianca, which, again, same thing like you said. I could see Bianca winning this, but I'm going to go with Io Sky on this one. We both have John Cena defeating Solo Sikoa. We both have Rhea Ripley defending in her Fatal 5-Way, walking out the champion, and we both have Roman Reigns winning. But, again, I feel like you could do a storyline throughout the entire pay-per-view, and I have no knowledge. I have nothing. I've read nothing other than this is just my own cockamamie theory and my own writing of what I would probably end up doing. If I was in Triple H's shoes and I had the pencil, I would see Damian Priest cashing in, because at a certain point I just feel like he's got to cash it in, and I could see this working out where Drew McIntyre does all of the heavy lifting for him. And he just has to run in and hit his finishing move and then get the 1, 2, 3, and he's your new champion. And then you could have Seth Rollins chasing. Ooh. And you could have Seth Rollins. You could have Sami Zayn. You could have those guys kind of teaming up to go against the Judgment Day. Could be very, very interesting. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Crowd's going to be hot. It's going to be a great pay-per-view. I thought the lead-up has been decent. I feel like the LA Knight, even though it's been only a couple weeks, I feel like his promos have been spectacular. Him taking the head of the table. I think bringing up the past, it has been great. I think WWE has done a good job. I just think of saying, hey, this is an opportunity for LA Knight to enter the main event picture, and it's going to be well-deserved. I think it's going to be a card that will be something that's talked about for a long time. And good on WWE for having a very interesting week. The one thing, I did have one complaint this week on WWE. I thought that Raw was great. I thought the shows this week were very well done. I just felt like the Creed brothers debut was sloppy. It literally looked like a Superstars match that was done on Raw. I felt like their attire was a little bit subpar. I felt like they were a little bit jittery in some of their movements, not as natural. And I just felt their presentation was far less than what would have needed to be when you're up against, like, you could tell the difference between newbies and the Alpha Academy. I was like, okay, great spot with picking up Otis. I thought that was great. The finishing move is a little bit wonky, where you just kind of like do a cannonball into another dude, kind of like Legion of Doom, but not the clothesline. I just thought that whole thing, Blue didn't look right. I thought the presentation of their manager wasn't right. I just thought that in totality, you have something with the Creed brothers, but you literally made them look like a tryout match, and to have them win was okay, but it was rough, man. I don't know if you saw that, but it stuck out in terms of the whole Raw. That match stuck out in regards to it being the wonkiest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it didn't feel like there was chemistry.
Not at all.
At least early on. It kind of felt like towards the back end of it got going a little bit, but a lot of times in some of your great matches, guys will have chemistry and guys will have worked with each other and guys will be able to kind of feed off each other. This one, it feels like this was the first time they've ever worked together. It felt herky-jerky. You're right. It was a poor debut. It's not how you necessarily want to debut. So I'm in lockstep with you. I was less than impressed with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what's been going on. AEW, I thought, was real solid this week. Man, it was real interesting to see now how MJF is moving forward here in his feud with Jay White. I thought that the Bullet Club match was unbelievable. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and the Acclaimed kind of being in the mix too has kind of elevated them. So MJF really is doing a lot of great work in regards to elevating really the entire company, and it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out moving forward. But I thought AEW has done well in regards to advancing the storyline with Edge and doing a lot of different things with Chris Jericho. Obviously, the reveal end up coming to fruition to be the big show. And I just thought AEW had themselves a nice week of solid wrestling, good storytelling. And even though, Kenny finds a lot of this stuff boring, yeah, it's not like top shelf, upper echelon, but I do think it's getting to that point where we can be more intrigued by what we're seeing.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think the show has been carried by MJF. Kenny's not a huge fan of MJF. You and I both love MJF. We think he's fantastic. So the last couple of shows have really been highlighted by him. This show had his storyline running through it. I think it was interesting that in the end he had to settle for the Acclaim, and I thought it was a good match. And I think it sets up a very interesting ending where you have Max Caster taking the belt bump from Jay White, pushing and saving MJF, getting him out of the way. I thought it was interesting. I thought Billy Gunn's usage of the F word throughout the match was quite interesting. Apparently it was Billy Gunn's birthday that day, and the microphones picked up a lot of him dropping the F-bomb, which they had to censor at certain points. I don't know if you caught that or not, but it was interesting. I think MJF's storyline, and this is part of the problem, I think that, and we're going to touch on this with AEW's creative when we get to news and notes here in a minute. MJF's storyline has been fantastic, and it has been arguably the most interesting part of the show because he's part of a couple of different storylines. He had what he had with Kenny Omega, and they put on a great match on Collision this past weekend. MJF's storyline with Adam Cole and how that bleeds over to Roderick Strong and Kingdom is interesting. And then you have MJF involved with the Acclaimed and MJF involved with the Bullet Club Gold. Like, MJF is involved in like 5 or 6 different storylines, and those storylines are what are most entertaining. Those are the things that you are absolutely tuning into. I think the big issue is, how do you get everybody else on a similar level? How do you get everybody else to where if you've DVR'd it, you don't want to fast forward through large chunks of the matches to get to something that MJF is involved in. And like I said, we're going to talk about some of the issues that AEW may be having creatively in news and notes. But I think that is the one thing that really stuck out to me this week, specifically with Dynamite, is it really felt like, and in the last couple weeks, it's really felt like it's MJF's show. Similar to how SmackDown usually feels like it's Roman Reigns' show, Dynamite has really felt like it's been MJF's show, and the most entertaining things have surrounded MJF. So how do they break away from that, and how do they get more guys elevated up the card to be on the level of MJF will be interesting going forward. You want some news and notes?
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list?
So we just previewed a little bit. Some trouble brewing in AEW. AEW's creative is starting to look a lot like the late Vince years in WWE. Recent reports are that AEW is becoming a frustrating creative environment with talent not knowing what's happening on show days and in the long term. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer revealed that the reasons why some shows turn out the way they do, saying, if you follow AEW, you know that a lot of the stuff is being decided at much later periods than previous. Guys are getting their information on what they're doing later, and decisions are being made later. There's times the day of the show, sometimes you don't even know what the plans are. It's almost like we used to talk about with WWE, which is so very frustrating for talent. A lot of guys have a lot of input on what they're doing, but they don't really know the long-term direction. So they're doing stuff and they're coming up with ideas, but when you don't really know exactly a long-term direction, you're kind of coming up with ideas week by week too. But you don't know where the ultimate thing is, and maybe the ultimate thing hasn't even been decided. So that's one of the reasons that the shows are like the shows are. Now on Twitter, Jerry Lynn weighed in on the creative frustrations and basically said that the boys are leaking the finishes to the dirt sheets, podcasts, and whomever, so things are being kept secret until the last minute. Khan's creative situation in AEW has not been helped by some other factors like the firing of CM Punk and the injuries to Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson. Last week's Dynamite drew the least number of viewers of the year so far in the usual Wednesday night time slot. So you're starting to see a bit of a reflection of how the creative is impacting the bottom line, which is the numbers. Now, mentioning that Bryan Danielson is out, so we have an update on Bryan Danielson. Last week, we threw an idea out there that they were building to an Okada versus Danielson 2 after last week's main event on Dynamite. On Saturday night, after we recorded, it was announced that that was not the plan. Danielson recently suffered an orbital socket injury that will see him out of action in AEW until later this year. With it being confirmed that the injury suffered on last week's Dynamite wasn't part of the storyline, it was also noted that it would require surgery, according to Tony Schiavone on AEW's Collision. At this time, we're unsure how long Danielson will be out, but best guess would be him not seeing action until late December or early January. Usually these types of injuries take at least 8 weeks to heal, and depending on how intensive that surgery is, it could be a little bit more. Now, could Ronda Rousey be joining AEW? Ronda Rousey made a surprise return to wrestling at the Lucha Vavoom event this past weekend as she teamed with AEW star Marina Shafir. Mind you, Marina Shafir and Ronda Rousey are friends. In her return to the ring, they defeated Taya Valkyrie and Brian Kendrick. After the event, it was announced that Rousey would be making a special appearance at Wrestling Revolver Unreal in Los Angeles on November 16th. This is the same event that will feature AEW stars Swerve Strickland and ROH Women's Champion Athena. Revolver has been known to host a lot of AEW talent, including Jon Moxley, Billy Starks, Marina Shafir, and others. So if AEW wanted a pathway to get to Ronda Rousey, and Rousey was interested in coming back to wrestling, this could be where it all kind of starts to build that relationship, and maybe she gets a contract offer. Sticking with AEW signings, Ric Flair is all elite. Earlier this week, it was announced that Flair signed a multi-year AEW contract after being presented as Tony Khan's special gift to Sting on last week's Dynamite. On the October 25th episode of AEW Dynamite, Flair reunited with Sting as the Icon prepares to bring an end to his career at AEW Revolution in 2024. On November 2nd, it was revealed that Ric Flair had also signed a multi-year deal that would also see his Woo energy drink become the exclusive energy drink of AEW. Dave Meltzer was able to confirm that both of these deals are for the next 2 years. Now, a WWE superstar has major surgery. For nearly 2 months, Ivar of the Viking Raiders has been appearing on TV without his long-term tag team partner, Eric, who has been out with an injury. Eric posted on Instagram with an update mentioning that he underwent C6 and C7 neck fusion surgery. He seems to be in good spirits when he posted C6, C7 fusion surgery was successful and recovery now begins. I'm excited for all the possibilities once my cybernetic upgrades are fully online. Ivar, who also underwent neck fusion surgery a couple of years ago, jokingly replied, "Can't wait to reveal our new tag team name upon your return, the Fusion Experience." So good luck to Eric, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery, and we'll see him back in WWE very soon. And that's going to do it for your wrestling news and notes.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you get in. Tell us your opinions. What do you think is going to happen? Can't wait to follow along, see the reactions as this show commences here at Crown Jewel. A lot of big things happening. Big show, even though it's going to take place 1 o'clock on a Saturday, right in the middle of college football. Still a lot of good stuff that will take place. Make sure you follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Weigh in anytime, good, bad, and different. If you like our picks, don't like our picks, definitely hit us up. Can't wait for next week to recap it. Maybe I find myself leading in such a way after the picks. Man, could you imagine next week we record and Damian Priest is the new champion? I would be shocked. Man, if they do something shocking, just let LA Knight win it. Let him win it. Let him be the guy. It would be crazy. It's really unfathomable that would be the case, but let's find out. That's what makes wrestling one of the greatest things out there. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I'm the Doc, John Macaroon. Can't wait to fire it up next week for the latest and greatest edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.